on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Jump Ball with Josh. I'm your host, Joshua Massey. I'm really excited to talk more hoops with you today. Today we're going to talk about my losers from the NBA trade deadline, and at the end of the show we'll give out another Massey's Man of the Week. But first, let's shoot around the league. We got some updates to spread around. Pistons and Thunder still lead their respective conferences. They've held a strong grip on the top of each of their conference, but the Thunder look like they're slowly losing that edge. You know, a few injuries. Shea's going to be out till after the All-Star break. J-Dub and all that. So there could be a potential shift there, especially with the Spurs going on a 4-game win streak, I believe. They're definitely hot on the tails of the Thunder. Pistons, they just bashed the Knicks yesterday morning. Very solid defensive game. They look like they're kind of keying in those big matchups and really taking a hold of them and proving that they can be and they can hang with these teams. I think the Pistons, they look like they're probably going to be untouchable at the top of the Eastern Conference. It looks like for every one they lose, they win 2 or 3. So it's going to be really hard to make up ground on them. But I think that West now is really wide open between the Spurs and the Thunder. A team that we just didn't expect to be here, Charlotte Hornets, have won 9 in a row. And that's awesome. That core of LaMelo Ball, you got Brandon Miller, you've got they've just traded for Kobe White. They've got Corkbrenner, Knipple, Bridges, Musa Diabate. They're all just clicking together. And I read a report today that the Timberwolves really tried to make a play for LaMelo Ball, and the Hornets didn't want to trade him. So you can see why now. 9 in a row. That's huge from a team that we look like we missed the play-ins to now might be a play-in team, and a team that you might not want to run into come playoff time. You know, they got that offense. They can be hot. They can score 120, 130 on you. Right, they're not the greatest defensively, but if they're putting up 130 on a night-to-night basis, it's going to be tough to hang with them, and it's going to be tough to do that, especially if your team's not heavily offensive. So, yeah, good job for them. What they're doing there is amazing. Turned around their season, and they're a fun team to watch. Probably up there with the 76ers as one of the most exciting teams right now in the NBA. They just have got the pace about them. They've got the youth about them. They've got a bit of swag, you know. They're just carrying themselves really well. So shout outs to the Hornets. And another team that all season has just been defying odds. It's the Boston Celtics have won 5 in a row. They're just Jaylen Brown, man, he just always has me lost for words. I love watching him now. I was always a big critic of Jaylen Brown, and to see him do what he's doing and carrying this team, it just makes me so excited. They've picked up Nikola Vucevic. It just makes me so excited for next year when Jason Tatum comes back. That East is going to be just as competitive as the West. So shout out to the Celtics. You know, there's a lot more I could talk about. James Harden made his Cleveland Cavs debut today. Jaren Jackson Jr. made his Jazz debut. So there's lots going on around the NBA, and as the deadline's over, it gets exciting now. We start looking towards March and April, where it's going to be teams gearing up for playoffs. They're going to have their playoff rotations, and you know they're going to tighten up those rotations. You're going to really see these stars playing 36 minutes a night. It's just, I'm really excited. I'm really pumped. The All-Star break is just around the corner, so lots to look forward to. But let's just move straight into these losers from the trade deadline. And these are just, they're not based on maybe the quality of players they got back. It's more or less where they are in their season and the moves that they did make or didn't make. And my first one is my team, the Miami Heat. Linked to Giannis noise pretty much the whole of January, the whole of February, the early February before the trade deadline. And it just seemed like Miami's chips was just in one court. We heard rumours with Jar, but it seemed like Miami was focused on that one big fish and nothing else. They had no contingency plans for if Giannis didn't want to be traded or got traded somewhere else. They didn't have a plan B. They don't want to trade future draft capital to go in now. And Miami has had this constant affliction with making just role players untouchable, or they don't want to trade them, like Nikola Jovic and Pelle Larsson and guys like that. And they're great in our system, and I love those guys, watching them in our system. But to get better, you've got to trade for better players and players that are more experienced or can make the big shots or put the big defensive stops in. And sometimes you've got to just part ways with guys that are loved in the organisation. And I just really feel like Miami for the past few seasons just hasn't been able to separate themselves from those names to go get the bigger names. And they get a loss here. They're 27 and 26, so a 500 team, play-in team at best right now. Made absolutely no moves. No moves. Didn't even move draft capital around just to maybe build the tank up. Didn't get off of Terry Rozier or Andrew Wiggins' expiring contracts or Norman Powell's expiring contracts. They're just hard to see what the vision is for this team. They've got, a guy in Tyler Hero that's just missed a lot of the season. Bam has been hit and miss, and they've got a young centre in Kalal Ware that just is being held at ransom by Spoelstra at times. So really tough to see where this Miami Heat team is going. But they just plain and simply, they're the biggest losers from this trade deadline to me. And it hurts me to say I really bought into the Giannis to Miami, really did. Wasn't fussed if he went somewhere else, but was hoping he would come here. But yeah, the noise just kind of shut out everything else for Miami. Moving on to my next team, and it's the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans just have had a weird season. They're 14 and 40, so absolute bottom of the barrel. They were a 21 and 60 team last year, and a couple of weeks before the deadline, or a week before the deadline, they pretty much said that everyone is untouchable. And it just really confused me. Like, you've got some good core there in Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen, and you don't want to trade any of your other assets to try and build some draft capital or something. You don't own your first pick this year. You picked this year, which is going to be a good pick. So you're not going to get into the sweeps of DeBanza or Peterson or Boozer or anyone like that. So why not move some of your, why not move a guy like Trey Murphy to try and get your first round pick back, or why not move a Herb Jones just to try and get some compensation or get some more younger players? I think now was the time to sell high on Zion. He's played a lot of games. He's stringing together a good run of games. I think it was the right time for Zion to get moved, and you could have got something for him. Just a really disappointing trade deadline. They obviously parted ways with Jose Alvarado. Big pickup there for the Knicks. It'll be a big dog pickup for the Knicks bench. But no direction here from the Pelicans. You're bottom of the barrel. You suck. And you just can't. You don't want to separate with anybody to get anything to make the season worth it. Trey Murphy is playing really good basketball, but what for? You're not gonna make the playoffs, and you're not gonna get a good pick. So you're just selling tickets, and you're not even doing that. One of the worst sold arenas this season. People aren't there, and just another team that gets a hard L for this trade deadline. The next team is the Golden State Warriors, and for me, the Warriors made a big move trading Kuminga and Buddy Hield to Atlanta Hawks for Porzingis, but what does it do? It doesn't move the needle right now. Porzingis has had pots. He's It's just something that's really hard to control. He's played 17 games. Sure, if you get the ceiling of Porzingis and you get Porzingis that shows up and the Porzingis of, a few years ago, then you're laughing. But he doesn't look anything like that right now, and that's why I just think this move was probably one to give the Warriors fans hopes and say, yeah, look, we made a move and we've tried to help Steph, but has it really? Like, if Porzingis doesn't play, then what's it going to do? It's not, you've just moved on two guys. Admittedly, Kuminga was probably going to be out of the lineup when he comes back, or we just don't know that situation. It's been a love-hate relationship with Kuminga and the Warriors, especially Steve Kerr. I'm glad for Kuminga, and he gets a big win. He's out. I'm excited to watch a few games of him in Atlanta and see how he goes. But yeah, I just think the Warriors could have made another move. They could have probably tried to go get Vucevic before the Celtics did, or just gone and got a centre that's going to be active and playing, So this just feels like a real give the fans hope move, and that's it. But hopefully it can turn out. Hopefully Porzingis can get right. It can turn out. Steph can have a guy that can stretch the floor for him and really, help him on that offensive end. And then he can hold down the defensive end with Draymond. And that could be a very fun front court pairing to watch. And my last team is the Dallas Mavericks. And it's not so for what's been done this year, but they traded Anthony Davis away to the Washington Wizards, which probably wasn't a bad move. He's been injured all of his tenure pretty much in Dallas. But it's a spiral. They traded Luka for Davis, and now they've traded Davis for essentially 2 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks. So basically you've traded Luka Doncic into 2 first-round picks. It's just not the value of the NBA that we know. And that's why I just give them an L from a long-term perspective. They've really dropped the ball on this one. They could have tried to run Davis, get him healthy and try and run his value up a bit more. This just feels real rushed, and like they just wanted to be done with the Nico Harrison era and that whole Luka fiasco. They get some incoming players like Marvin Bagley and Chris Middleton, who probably won't change the trajectory of this franchise much. And this is just a clear signal now that they are going all in to build around Cooper Flagg, which I'm not mad at, but just think you could have definitely gotten a whole lot better for Anthony Davis, which is essentially Luka Doncic. Anyway, we'll move on to my favourite part of the segment, and that's Massey's Man of the Week. Last week it was Brandon Miller for their hot run. We've given it out to guys like Kawhi, Russell Westbrook, and this week it was the guy that's just really been kicking down doors this season. And I look less at the impact on winning and just the impact that he's having. And it's across the board this season. He does it. He's a PRA machine. Just love watching him come out of his shell. Good to see he's healthy this year. And that guy is Jalen Johnson, averaging 27.5 points, 11.5 assists, and 12 rebounds over the 3 games this past week, shooting 55% from the field. The Hawks went 2-1. And Jalen Johnson is you just call him a Swiss Army knife. He can just do a lot of things really well. You look at this and he's scoring, he's rebounding, he's assisting, and the game slows down for Jalen Johnson, especially when he's getting out in transition. He's getting downhill. That's when he's gets to work. That's when he's at his best, getting downhill, getting into the paint. And yeah, he is definitely breaking down those walls and just developing more and more as the season goes on before our eyes. And it's just a shame that someone like Zachary Ricochet just didn't pan out how they thought. They could have had a really good tandem there, and Zachary and Jalen Johnson, but he's been doing great things this season. Love watching him, and so he is officially Massey's Man of the Week. Anyway, that is going to be it for today. If you liked what was going on today, please make sure you subscribe, like, and put any comments. I want this to be an open forum where we can talk about anything NBA. Please make sure you do subscribe so you don't miss out. I do shorts, I do little videos, I do these episodes every Sunday. It's a good way to support the channel. Anyway, I've been your host Joshua Massey, and this is Jump Ball with Josh. See you next week.